Hi everyone, it's Roger and Jeremy here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Star Wars: The Clone Wars. This is going to be the movie rather than the animated series. So just ahead of the May the 4th celebrations, we kind of want to do a Star Wars retro one. And we always go back and look at the main movies, and we've had obviously the Mandalorian and stuff like that. But this one was one Jeremy picked up, and I was like, actually, you know what? I don't think I've seen this one for ages, and watched it again, and I'm like, it was such a weird movie, wasn't it? Such a weird movie.
Yes, it's definitely a very weird movie. All I can think about every time I see it is I remember telling a friend of mine I saw it after the TV show started, and I hadn't watched that yet. And I was like, I don't want to watch a TV show till I watch the movie because I want George Lucas to disappoint me in the order he intended. Um, uh, I didn't realize then that the Clone Wars TV show was going to be so good.
Yeah.
This is not anywhere near as good. But I mean, it was fine. I mean, I enjoy myself, but that may just be the Star Wars nerd in me.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird things, isn't it? I think because the Clone Wars developed over time. Because I remember when the Clone Wars came out the first time around, and I watched the first season, and I was just a bit like, yeah, it's okay. It's not Star Wars. It was just like, yeah, it's okay. But obviously, as the seasons got on, so it started getting a lot better once it started going past. Because to be honest, originally, it's like this movie and the first season, it's a kid show. It is a kids movie. There is no, he's not pulling any punches. This is the Jar Jar Binks. This is who it's aimed at. It's not aimed at adults. It was, and we watch this movie back, and it does feel like just like 3 episodes slapped together. It kind of doesn't have, it's like suddenly the middle story goes into a different, like, hey, what, the story's completely changed. It's definitely worth checking out. And if you're going to start watching the Clone Wars, you might as well start here. It's perfectly, I think the graphics look great. I mean, considering the age of it, I think they spent probably a little bit more on the graphics on this one than maybe the TV series to begin with. But the voices all sound good. I'm used to the character design now because I have watched all 7 seasons of the show, so it doesn't bother me at all now with how it looks. I remember at the time, I think, being a little bit like, a bit different. But it was just nice seeing Anakin being, the two of them just being together, and it makes so much more sense had this been like fleshed out more when they were releasing the movies. Had they done this, it would have probably had a lot more effect than when it happened the first time around.
Yeah, like I said, I enjoy it, but it doesn't hold up. You get Ahsoka introduced in here. That's great. You get to see some responsibility for Anakin, which is great. And then you kind of get to see the beginnings of what you'll see later on, because it feels like what they did with Baby Yoda. They tried to do a Baby Jabba there at the beginnings. It's like, oh, Dave Filoni, you have a little trope to go with, but you did much better the second time.
Yeah, it's also that kind of I think obviously now, post season 2 of Mandalorian, we kind of look at Ahsoka very differently because she's grown up in this with the Clone Wars and Rebels, and then so seeing her in here as kind of essentially like a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, I think that's what she was around that time. But and calling her Snips and just her being a little kid, and so, she looks so different. And it was kind of like, I was like, oh, I forgot how young she was when she started, because I obviously watching, Clone Wars season 7 last year. It's like, oh yeah, I forgot that she was that young.
Right, yeah. And I'm just been finishing up a run through of Rebels where she appears, and and then just comparing the two, it's so odd.
But that's kind of the cool thing, because I remember we didn't really have, they did that with like episode 1 to episode 2 where Anakin kind of grew up, but we didn't really, it's very jarring. This one's not quite as jarring as that whole thing was, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really fun, like, just a kind of, it's just like having a couple of episodes put together, just a bit higher budget, and it's just the start of the whole thing with the Clone Wars, and I think sometimes it might get lost. I wonder how many people will actually start watching the Clone Wars and don't even realize that this movie actually existed, because I could imagine there's a lot of people starting it that don't think that there was a movie.
It's like the movie the movie just doesn't hold up as well as the show.
No, and I mean it's kind of funny because I remember this coming out like I think it was 2008. So I was well into my late 20s. So it was. I think I went to the cinema to see it because it was a bit like
Mhm.
Star Wars, and I remember sitting there and it was like, oh, I've actually just come to. It's literally was like, oh, I came to a kids. And that was probably enough just to. I remember just sitting there going, yeah, this isn't. This is just more. It's really funny now with the whole Clone Wars era of how um it's changed, like being a little bit older, obviously being an original trilogy kid. I never was a big fan of the Clone Wars. I didn't mind the movies and I watched them every time they were on TV, but that's fine, whatever it was, because there's a whole generation younger than me that is their Star Wars, and they accepted it as they were being kids. And I mean, I play a lot of Star Wars tabletop games, and they've introduced loads of Clone Wars stuff in the last 2 years on like Legion and X-Wing, and like most of the people I'm playing with, I've all picked those factions to play with because they grew up because they're like 10 years younger than me, grew up watching it all, and it's just kind of funny to they've got nostalgia for it, and they've they because they've picked out all the best bits from the Clone Wars, and kind of managed to make this, they made it great. Whereas obviously being, and that's maybe why I was probably a lot more accepting of the newer trilogy, because I'd already gone through that, as you said, the disappointment of the first time around.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like with the Clone Wars movie, it was of a different era because it was pre-Disney buying it, so it was one of the last things that they were working on. And yeah, it was just kind of like the last kind of effect of it's what they probably wanted to do with the Clone Wars, but they never really felt like they had the time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
And anything else you want to add on that one?
Not much. I mean, I like how it began. It set up everything, and I'm now ready to go watch the Clone Wars TV show all the way through. See if I can get that done before Bad Batch.
Yeah, that's going to be a bit of I mean, that's a cool thing. We've got Bad Batch coming up in May, so that'll be definitely fun to watch. But let us know in the comments below what you think of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the movie. Love to hear your thoughts. Remember, you do get access to these episodes a little bit earlier if you are a Patreon or a YouTube channel member. You help support the channel, etc., and so on. But on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you guys soon. Laters.
Later.